Welcome to the Bible Forum. I'm Warren Sprouse. It is June 17th, 2018, and we are back on the Bible Forum. We have had a very busy week this week trying just to stay normal. Things have been going on in my life that have been chaotic. Maybe you have gotten things settled out. I don't know. I have a new phone number. I have shared that number with an email to regular listeners and friends and family and all the rest of it. But if you are interested in making a phone call, send me an email. I'll give you the phone number, or give me your number, I'll call you, whatever it is. If you know the old number, you can call it for another day, and then it's going to get shut off. It's just the way things run. So we looked at this week, and I realized that if I block somebody from my Twitter account, it is apparently against the law. I thought Twitter accounts were my personal property. I mean, I can do it or not do it. I can encourage people to watch or not. I don't know. But that's what our president did to someone called Dr. Eugene Gu, G-U. And the good doctor sued him. Said, you can't do that to me. And the doctor won. Now, 6 other people joined in that lawsuit. This is an Asian American man who sees the president as racist. And he said when we first filed a lawsuit to defend our First Amendment rights, a big segment of the general public was almost mocking us, saying it was frivolous and the stupidest lawsuit in the world. I say amen. I don't know about you, but they won. Oh, and he also lost his 5-year residency at Vanderbilt University. He had spent 3 years there. They say it had nothing to do at all with the suit, had to do with his performance. But as he points out, for those of us who don't know, he now has to start all over again. 5-year program. It has to start all over again. NBC ran a news piece this weekend highlighting the growing problem of teenagers not getting enough sleep. And there was a piece, and it had a mother and a daughter, and she was beside herself. The mother didn't know what to do. Her daughter's getting only 5 hours of sleep. And you say, well, what is the problem here? Well, as you look into it, you realize these kids have gizmos. They have little pads and phones and all sorts of other things, and they have their friends, and they have people around the world they don't even know, but they're talking to them constantly, and they're going on, and they can't get any sleep. And the poor mother had no recourse. She did not know what to do. She was appealing to the community at large to help her with this. Have we come that far? Take the phone away from the child. It's bedtime. Give me your phone. Shut off the Wi-Fi in the house. Whatever you have to do. The children need to go to bed. And this article said that if you're a child, not a teenager, you need, you ready for this? 12 hours. 12 hours. You're a teenager, you can get by on 9 or 10. These kids are getting by on 5. Makes you wonder about some of the things they do. The American Episcopal Church, which is not noted for its strict adherence to the written Word of God, has made the news this week. This particular organization is socially liberal, religiously liberal as an organization. In my view, they are hardly worthy, I should say, of the name Christian. But they are apparently not finished, not yet. Recently, they altered the Episcopalian standardized version of the marriage vow to remove any use of the terms husband and wife. Yeah, they don't want to offend same-sex couples that they might marry. They say this is going to avoid offending homosexuals. But the new rule is to be standard throughout. So even in a normal wedding, I know I'm a bigot. In a normal wedding, the couples will be referred to in exactly the same way. Oh, and there will be no more mention of procreation, since same-sex couples can't do that. Now, the Church of England is not happy. They're Episcopalians too. However, 30 of the 483 members of the Anglican Church's synod, including the Bishop of Buckingham, have declared themselves in support of the pro-homosexual changes in the Episcopal Church's Common Prayer. Welcome to the chaos. You can read more about this on the website prophecynewswatch.com. What is the biggest threat to Iranian Islamism? Well, the biggest threat in Iran to the absolute rule of Islam seems to be Christianity. Who knew? In Iran, apparently, churches must register. And of course, in registering, they are monitored. It's another word for policed, controlled. Practice of biblical Christianity in your church, and they will shut you down. Marry people in your church, and you will be fined. Iran ranks 8th in state persecution of religious belief in the world, other than Islam. However, amidst all this persecution, the Iranian church seems to be growing. In 2017, Operation World reported that the number of Christians in Iran saw a 19.6% increase in 2016 alone. Elam Ministries, whose goal it is to expand the church throughout Iran and beyond, reports that in the late 90s, there may have been as few as 2,000 to 5,000 Christians. But today that number has risen to an estimated 300,000 and maybe as much as 1 million. The exact number is obscured by government persecution. The growth is coming from the so-called house churches. Estimates are that by 2020 there will be 7 million Christians in Iran. My guess is that these people are far more biblically oriented than we. Just saying. The Beacon School, which is an elite New York City public high school, is not known for silent tributes. Not for the deaths of the estimated 500,000 Syrians killed by the government of President Bashar Assad and its allies, not for the murder of 2,000 Israelis in the last 2 decades. And that's why parents and the community at large were shocked. Some were outraged when a school-wide silent tribute to Palestinians killed along the Gaza border with Israel was authorized. The school permitted a student to make a special announcement over the public address system, disrupting the entire student body, causing children and teachers to stop what they were doing, that they might have a moment for these Palestinian terrorists, some civilians, but willing participants, who are rushing the fences along the Israeli border, some trying to get through, causing all kinds of problems, forcing the military to respond, some of which have been killed. And we take a moment to remember the loss. Under the heading of Here We Go Again, Florida activist David Hogue, you know David, he wants the United States to raise the minimum wage to $15. It sounds like Chicago. It sounds like California. There are a number of places in the country that have raised the minimum wage up to and including $15. He says it's going to reduce violence in America. How's that going to work? Did you know David was 17 years old? A 17-year-old high school student with a mouth that would embarrass truck drivers. And we still don't know how he can afford to travel the nation and do all that he does. A new study released from the University of California, Irvine, found that a $1 increase in the minimum wage would lead to a roughly 3% increase in poverty and in government dependency. That over a 30-year period. This is more than double our current minimum wage rate of $7.25. Minimum wage increases, according to the study, have not lowered poverty rates in the United States. In the disadvantaged neighborhoods, nothing has changed. We are witnessing a tremendous back and forth on the border with words as we have folks disputing the idea of separating children at the border. For weeks now, the Trump administration has been blasted in establishment and social media for separating parents and children caught crossing into the United States illegally. An illegal alien, a person who comes into your country illegally, is a criminal. Just say it. And now for allegedly allowing 1,500 minors to go missing. Some even allegedly allowed into the hands of gangs and human traffickers. But inquiring minds want to know, what's the truth here? A leading immigration expert says, according to an organization called Law and Policy, that parents are responsible for the separation. And the Trump administration is actually doing a much better job, a more responsible job of tracking children than any of the previous administrations. The Center for Immigration Studies Director of Policy, a woman by the name of Jessica Vaughn, said adult-child separation is standard operating procedure at the border in several circumstances. In some cases, the adults are not the parents. In some cases, children are being smuggled in. And in other cases, parents send their children with other adults to establish a deportation shield for them when they come later on. And you ask yourself, who knew this? Well, only every media agency known to the world. They just won't tell you. It was a man on the street interview this past week. Students from George Washington University in the nation's capital, that's what the article said, it's actually in Maryland, were asked to render their own decision as to whether a baker would be required by law to provide a cake. A Christian cake baker not wanting to provide a cake for a homosexual married couple or whatever has made the news, and the Supreme Court ruled just recently on one aspect of this whole thing. But in the man on the street interview among these young people, the common answer was he should have to bake the cake because that's his job. But as you know now, these man on the street interviews, the guys with the microphone, they're clever, and they come back around and they change the scenario to, well, what if a black baker is asked to provide a cake for a KKK rally? Now, one student who said the Christian baker should provide a cake for the same-sex wedding wasn't so sure. This student said, well, they shouldn't, but I guess that contradicts what I said, so yeah. Take the like out and get a brain. The Chicago Crime Commission now estimates there are more than 50 gangs operating in the Chicago city area, under the leadership of 1,000 people. 1,000 people whose mugshots take up over 400 pages in the latest book of street gangs, and with a membership of over 100,000. These are gangs. The vast majority are required to demonstrate their qualifications for membership by means of overt violence up to and including murder. And Chicago is looking for ways to revamp their means of tracking them. Arrest them, get them off the street, block them up, stop it, protect the streets. Not going to happen. Liberal city. Did you pay your taxes? The federal government collected a record $1,143,141,000, and that was in individual income taxes over the first 8 months of the fiscal 2018 that started in October. According to the monthly Treasury statement, despite the record of individual income tax collections, the federal government still ran a deficit of just over $532 billion compared to the same 8 months a year ago. Now, the truth is they collected more than they collected last year, $56 billion more. But inflation is eating up the value. It's a silent killer. That's the kind of things that were going on in this world while you were busy living your life. When we come back, we're going to take a look at the Southern Baptist meeting. They had a quarterly meeting this week. They had some really interesting things that popped up. No, they didn't have the guy we think about so much these days speaking, but they had the vice president. We'll talk about that later. Stay with me.